Okay, should we get started?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, so I've already been recording and just that way we have some good stuff.
Oh.
Because I always love like the
Caught
initial
with my skirt down.
right. I love like the initial like hellos as like when we're just hopping on like very genuinely for the first time to be like the beginning. It just makes for a cool connection. But yeah, so how the most annoying question that I have is always the first one. Who who is Juno? How would you introduce Juno to the world, to the brand new people who are interacting with you for the very first time?
Oh, I'd say I'm a modern day mystic. I'm a witch, and I have an authentic belief that people are good, and it's just that we're always doing our best with what we're equipped with. And I'm a founder and executive director of a nonprofit, and I work in the field of wellness because I want to make a difference for how queer people get to age because there's not really a plan for us for aging. And so I, having been a social worker previously, was really interested in like the systemic approach to that.
Mm. Oh.
That's me. That's Juno in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. I was raised by social workers, and so like social work has such a special place in my heart. Like social workers themselves are just incredible people, and the field is every field has its ups and downs, but just like that the approach and the humanity there is so powerful. But I love that of focusing on aging for us as our queer community. Like where
Yeah.
did that come from? Can you expand on that a little bit more? Like, I'm really curious about that.
So 2 to 3 years ago, I opened my nonprofit, which is called the House of H. That's the company or the nonprofit. Yeah, the nonprofit's not a company. It's, it's the nonprofit that is hosting the retreat that we are working on together, which I'm very excited for. Um, but when I was first conceptualizing of this nonprofit, I was talking to an accountant, and I said, like, my goal is to bring spirituality to queer people because there's not really a plan, or like, not that there's not a plan for queer people in spirituality, but like, we're asked to leave most spiritual spaces. So for me, I was like, well, I want to open a space that is distinctly queer and asks people the question of, like, what do you believe spiritually, and how can you believe it deeper, and how can we dismantle like religious and systemic trauma that we've been immersed in and exposed to our whole life, sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally.
Mm.
And when I spoke to the accountant about that, he basically said, like, well, you don't need a building for that, because I had this vision of like a building. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, you're a nonprofit, and a lot of your initial funding is going to come from grants and stuff like that. So they're not going to be able to create logic around you just wanting a building. You have to build it in such a way that your organization needs it to function.
Mm.
And I didn't really understand that. And I was like, okay. So I took some space and I looked at the problem further, and I was like, well, what's really the issue? And I'm like, I think that the larger issue is that queer community sometimes lacks community, like authentic community. And I think that that comes from a place of like queer people being conditioned to like worship youth and like worship youth culture and stuff like that. And I think that comes from a larger systemic issue of people being afraid of death and us not really talking about how that's the one great unifier.
Mm.
And then I kind of like started to mull that over in my head. And a friend of mine who I worked really close with at the beginning of the conception of this project works in an elder care facility in Central Florida. And he brought to me the information that a lot of queer people that are in elder care, specifically in his elder care facility in Central Florida, have to kind of go back into the closet because many of the other people there that are the residents aren't always totally accepting of queerness. And a lot of the staff, even though there has been like sensitivity training and cultural awareness training around queerness, they're still not fully accepted. And I was like, well, people shouldn't be have to fight their whole life, especially like the generation older than us who fought for so many of our rights. Like they shouldn't have to fight for these rights and spend most of their life fighting and then have to go back in the closet. Like that seems both like depraved and unfair. And I was like, no. And so then I kind of was like, I feel really passionate about that. I want to change that. And then the combination of that realization and like the whole spiritual component, I was like, there's something here, but I don't know what it is quite yet. And so then I was looking into like models for communal living, and I was taken to, I think like the Scandinavian countries like Norway and Sweden. They all have this type of program where after you graduate college, you can live in an elder care facility, and there's this aspect of like intergenerational learning that happens. And I was like, there's something to that. And so I was like, well, I don't necessarily want 20 and 22-year-olds living in a communal living facility. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but like I was thinking that like you don't have a ton of life experience by that point. You have some, but not a ton. And I think that by the age of 30, you have a lot of lived experience and you have perspective. And so the community that I'm opening is going to be a 30 plus community, and it's going to be um, kind of give queer people specifically, a way to age in grace and dignity, which we don't, because like the standard straight community has the plan of like get married, preferably early, like high school to college, get married, have kids, retire, have the kids take care of you, die. They inherit whatever you had. And queer people don't really have that path line or even that um, ability to have stability as they age. Like we don't have a trajectory for stable aging. And so I was like, here it is. Here, if I combine these things, I can create a solution to a systemic problem. And that was like my approach to everything.
Wow. Holy cow, that is incredible. So the work that you do through House of H and the retreats and all of the corollary services and programs all stems back up to that, to solving that systemic problem.
Yes. And um, because my organization is a nonprofit and because all of my retreats somehow revolve around community building and like this whole thing that I'm talking about, the retreats actually are tax deductible to the fullest extent of law and based on your like your setup of however you do that. But uh, we kind of took the model that the Girl Scouts use, where like Girl Scout cookies are tax deductible because they're teaching the girls entrepreneurship. And the retreats are essentially tax deductible because we're asking people to look at life differently and we're teaching people a different approach to how to age. So because of that, there's like this ability to deduct your retreat experience because you don't even have to own like your own business to do it. You can just because it is considered like an educational immersion, kind
Wow.
of like when people go to Peru and learn farming, and then that's tax deductible and stuff like that. So it's a very similar approach to a different problem.
Wow. Wow. And just like how hopeful and like life-giving this opportunity can be for somebody, just to explore, for a queer person to see a different way of what life could look like, as like an alternative or a new approach compared to what we've all grown up with in the culture here, of seeing a different pathway and a path forward that somebody gets to choose. That's that could change somebody's life.
Yeah, and I think that this is the first time we've really been in a position to ask the question of what do I do as I age? Because prior to this, like being gay and out at an old age wasn't really an option because of like where we were historically. And the first place we may have actually experienced that was the 1980s, but due to the AIDS crisis, a lot of queer elders were kind of like wiped out tragically. And so this is really my response to living in a post AIDS crisis world. And I'm aware that like AIDS and HIV is still a very relative issue and still an important conversation, but we're really living in the wake of something. And so to explore a solution for that, I think is really important. And actually, it's going to be opening in like a kind of tiered process, because like medical availability is really important to me. Like people getting having access to their meds, including um, like hormones for transitioning and like full medical support for queer people and queer issues, essentially. Um, because that's a huge part of it. Actually, we're going to be opening an elder care facility first, so it's going to be like initially a 55 plus community, I think, um, that focuses around like health and aging and stuff like that. But then within the 3 years after opening our doors, we're going to expand the program to a 30 plus community. So anyone that comes in early or is like an early adopter is going to experience one version of it, and then it's going to be an expanded, more inclusive version of it. But we have like just to open in steps and start small type stuff.
Wow. Wow. What is the timeline looking like there? And where is it?
We're currently seeking investors,
Hmm.
and the timeline, I guess, would be over the next 18 months or so to 2 years.
Fast.
I'll be hopefully getting enough investors to break ground and find a location. The location that I love most right now is in the Berkshires in Massachusetts, but I've also found a couple of other locations in like Rochester, New York, and stuff like that. My goal is to open the first location in a blue state just for, safety and ease. And then eventually, as there are more opportunities for growth, I do visualize this expanding both like nationwide and hopefully worldwide. And so um, I would then extend to like other blue states and then red states and stuff like that. But I think that it's important for me at least that I start in like the Boston,
Hmm.
like New York, kind of like blue, but city adjacent areas where there's already a bunch of gay people congregating.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bigger dream with which once there's like multiple centers, say like you've been living in the one in the Berkshires for like a year or so, and you're like, I don't like love the snow here in the winter. It's just like kind of a lot. The dream would be then that you could transfer yourself to one in like New Mexico or Florida or something like that. Like because the vision that I have is like these kind of tiny homes around a central building. So like how it's being built now based on the conception that I've been talking with my mentor about, because whatever is an elder care facility that like everything would be self-contained in and like all the medical stuff would be contained in. Then there would be a larger like retreat center type building where there's like the business stuff and the workout space and all of this. And then like about 20 to 30 guest rooms. And then there would be communal living for people that live on the property and work at the retreat center, and communal living for people that do not necessarily work at the retreat center, but are just like wanting to age in community.
Oh my goodness. This is like gonna make me cry. It's so like it's amazing because we've so many of us have like longed for a hope of this, or like an idea of something like of communal living where we get to be around people who see the world in a similar way, or who've experienced similar things, or who align with where we are. But um there haven't been a lot, if very few, models of like actually seeing that thought get off the ground. Like I've heard of this like from clients of all ages, but yes, particularly like clients 50 plus for years of like, I just wish there was some place that like I I could go, that's not a retirement home, that's not um not somewhere with family because I don't have any family or been estranged from my family, or I just want to be with my chosen people, like my chosen family. And
Yeah.
and having taking that thought and now being like, here it is, it's real, there's a real place, is just extravagant. It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I like the funniest part really is that it all started with a joke like at the gym one
Mm.
day. I was with my friends and I literally was like, wouldn't it be hilarious if, and then like fast forward 3 years and here I am. So like it's just like wild how the universe works sometimes. But I do think that, yeah, I've heard a lot of people asking about this type of a thing too for a really long time. And my mom always raised me with the belief of like, if you see a problem and you don't see a solution, be the solution.
Mm.
And that was a very early thing for me, like in high school, in the 90s, before it was cute to be gay popular, like out front. Um, I've always been like this. Like, there's never been hiding this. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, um, I was like, well, what about the kids that don't do theater? Like, they should have some place to go for if they're gay, like to feel safe. And that came on the heels of like that thought process came on the heels of I asked my theater teacher like what I needed to do to get a lead role. And she was like, "Oh, you're much too feminine to ever play a leading man." And then I was like, "Okay, well, okay." And then I was like, "Well, I'm going to take that and kind of put it like spin it on its head and be like, well, what can I do that then is safe for people? Because clearly, like this theater space is not like fully safe or inclusive. So how do I make something more safe and inclusive?" And in high school, I had a meeting with the principal, and the principal was like, "You need to find a faculty advisor, and you need to get 100 signatures." And I was like, "Okay, done." So I did that within like a week, and then we had a gay straight alliance that still is there today, and it was like one of the first three in New Jersey, I think, that were created. So
Oh my goodness. Wow. So you've been a social advocate from the beginning.
yeah, kind of unintentionally, but just like I think I've always been one where it's like you don't tell me. I have a really strong case of you don't tell me. And so when somebody tries it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes for you.
Watch this. Yeah.
Oh, I can't watch me. Yeah.
Mhm. Wow. Oh, what a great way to yeah, to take that and run with it, and to do good with it too. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. How do the retreats play into that larger picture? So like the retreats that you've been doing now, like how do they play in with the larger vision you have for the nonprofit?
Yeah. So like each of the retreats is based around like an aspect of being gay or queer that has been given to us by straight people and how we then reclaim that. Because like again, this being the first kind of generation where we're seeing the development of queerness past youth culture, it's like, okay, so then we have to question the larger picture of like, what have we learned and where has it come from?
Mm.
And one of the things that kind of came to my attention was like the way that we relate to sex. It's taught to us through the heteronormative narrative of like monogamy and like you should aspire for one partner that you spend the rest of your life with. And I think that that is largely based in purity culture, which I don't agree with because that leads to like a ton of shame, which I know I don't need to tell you about because you're like our shame expert. Um, but just like the realization of that. And I was in a very conscious space not too long ago. I was chefing on a retreat and I was talking to a straight woman about this like dynamic that I was in, but I felt really kind of pulled to this one person that I had just met. And the straight woman made a comment of like, oh, but you don't want someone who's like really loose with their energy, do you? And because the person that was in our company was like very energetically free and like there was this like very magnetic bond between us. And I kind of came to the realization that like, oh, even in the most like enlightened of heterosexual spaces, there's still this deep rooted judgment or like not judgment necessarily, but this deep rooted kind of expectation that like we should still live into the heteronormativity of like monogamy and one-on-one relationships. And like I'm totally fine with monogamy. There have been relationships that I've been in where I preferred monogamy. There have been relationships that I've been in where I prefer ethical non-monogamy or polyamory or stuff like that. Like, but I think just the thing that I wanted to work on around that was like dismantling the should of it all. Like, you should be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what reclamation is. And so like the retreat you're working on with me is based on around the like reclamation of like our sexuality and what that looks like to being sacred in a culture that doesn't inherently look at sexuality as sacred in general. Like not just queer community, but like the straight community. It's like there's so much guilt and shame around any action of it that I want to kind of like dismantle that, and also kind of teach people that like being in your personal power and being authentic and expressing curiosity and all of that, that is what sacred sexuality is about. Communication, compromise, like not necessarily compromise, but communication, like being flexible, and like just like authentic curiosity is like a beautiful way to develop a sacred sexual practice. And that's kind of what our retreat is about. And then the one that I'm hosting next October is based around kind of earth-based spiritualities, and like I led with I'm being like I'm a witch and a mystic and all this stuff. And so the October retreat is really all about kind of the reclamation of spirituality through the lens of earth-based practices. So there's going to be everything from umancy, which is like egg divination, to human design, to kundalini, like awakening type stuff, to a Reiki attunement, to um, like learning tarot. There's going to be a high magic ceremony at that, like a proper, like full high magic ceremony, which is like kind of hard to come across in an open circle. Like, there are lots of closed circle practices where you can, like, if you know somebody, you can get in, but it's generally not a thing. And just there's going to be like a big costume party, and I'm actually in talks right now with a really famous drag queen who may be like hosting the costume party. So like, and that to me is like about reclamation of spirituality, but also like queer joy in community.
Mhm.
And whereas the retreat you and I are working on in May is specifically a GBTQ men's retreat, the October retreat is for anyone, including allies, guys, gals, non-binary pals, all of it. Like, anyone that feels called to be there can be there. My qualifier, I guess, would be like, just don't be an asshole or be a fun asshole. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Uh-huh.
Um, so those are the two retreats that I'm focusing on, and what their overall message and how they tie into the House of H is. Because um, the whole message for the House of H essentially is like, be queer, live outside the box, like redefining what family looks like, reclaiming personal sovereignty, and empowering queer futures.
Mhm. Oh my goodness. Oh, that is so good. And like it's so powerful to present people with that opportunity to look at spirituality, to look at sexuality from uh, a non-biased point of view of, like here are all the options that are available to you. And also like you get to expand beyond that and there are options that you get to create and things like that too. But like um, you get to decide what your sexuality looks like for you, even when we are raised in cultures that say like this is what it looks like, or this is how it's performed, or this is what you need to do, this is what you can't do. Same with spirituality. And like uh that's like one of the things I love to do, like just with my work, and I hope like the goal and the intention behind it is like it's not to push any any one way of living or one way of being or operating or relating, but just to say that like you get to choose. You get to choose what is so authentic and genuine to you. But it's important
Yeah,
for us to remove the shame of it, to remove the shoulds of it, to to help like kind of cleanse your palate so that way you can be a blank slate to decide what works for you today, knowing that tomorrow it might totally change. But like you said, like monogamy is awesome. Non-monogamy is awesome. All types of spirituality are awesome. Like there's and we get to check in with us and see like what is true for this iteration of myself that's here now, and how can I practice that out? Like how can I give myself permission to do that? It might align with that larger narrative that we grew up with. And if that's intentional and checked in, then okay, great. Then that's true.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, or it might be completely opposite. And if that's checked in, then love it. Like I think just like giving people that space to be like, you get to play. You get to play with your own life and have fun with it. And like this is yours, even with society and religion and politics and cultures and communities, like even with them saying like, no, do it this way, you get to help people be like, no, you actually get to decide. And that's
Yeah.
freedom at the end of the day. That's amazing.
And that's the thing. I think the so like not that we're at war right now internally in our own country. I mean, it sometimes feels like a second civil war with where we are right now. But I think like the opposite of war itself is not peace, it's creation, to quote like Rent.
Mm,
And or to quote Jonathan Larson who wrote Rent. And I think that that's like that quote has been something that has stuck with me for like my whole life. Like, because if war breaks things down, then creation is truly the opposite of that thing. And I
mm,
think that right now, whether or not you feel like we're internally experiencing war within America, I think there's definitely a lot of civil unrest and distrust of authority. And I think part of how we get through something like that is through acts of reclamation like this, like starting an organization that says like we see what you have planned for us and that's not okay, so we're going to do it our own way.
mm,
Like I've always been of the mindset of like why bother complaining when we can make a difference. Like
mhm. Yeah, yeah, I'm the exact same way. Like, yeah, like we can just take that energy and be like, okay, like kind of going back to what you said earlier, like how do I get to solve this problem? Like there, um, that's how I can utilize my influence, my action, where I can take it somewhere more helpful, more effective. Oh, that's so good. I know we've kind of touched around it a little bit, but should we tell the people about our retreat in more details?
oh yeah, I'm happy to do that. Also, like I just yeah, let's do that. I had something else that I was going to say, and then I was like, we could deal with that later. What's the question essentially about the retreat, or do you just want me to like vomit at the mouth? Because I can do both.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, let's just kind of tell them all about it.
Okay, so it is happening from May 1st to May 4th because it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. Um, so May 1st, May 4th, so over Beltane weekend. And for those of you who know what Beltane is, it's like this fertility festival in the along the like Wiccan holiday like wheel of the year, and it's frequently associated with like sex and sexuality and like um, fertility and things like that. So I was like, okay, I like this idea, but also um, I had been playing with the idea of doing a bacchanalia for like a really long time, and a bacchanalia was a Roman festival for the god Bacchus, who is the Greek god Dionysus,
Mm,
and they would basically be like celebrations of drunken liberation and sexuality and stuff like that, and it was originally held around midsummer each year. And
mm,
I was like, I like the idea of this, but I'm not sure how I want to integrate it. So then, like, of course, that was just like hanging out in the back of my mind for a bit. And then I was in Utah at a retreat where I met this guy who was very intriguing. And he also hosts retreats. And so I was like, we should host a retreat together. And it started as a joke because I just thought this boy was cute. And then it like kind of just took on its own life. And the facilitators came into place very easily. I contacted you because I saw you in a picture with someone I know,
Mhm.
and I like love your audience and your demographic and your like approach to sexuality and queerness, and I love your work with shame. So I was like, I need to talk to this man. And I was like, what's the worst that happens? He says like, no, I'm not into it. So I messaged you and you were very receptive. And then I contacted our mutual friend, Dylan Diaz, who I think was on the episode previous to this or something like that.
Mhm.
And he was very into it. So I was like, perfect. And then like little by little, the gaps that I had in my head that I wanted to fill in, like I wanted a yoga teacher because I didn't want to teach yoga in the morning every morning. So I found this like queer yoga teacher who's like incredible and just really, I love his perspective. He works also spiritually with like many cultures of spirituality. And part of the thing that was really important to me, because my lead co-facilitator um, is also like very white presenting, much like yourself and much like me, even though I'm like Cuban and Italian, and I grew up in a very mixed culture location with many cultures. It just like something that bothers me is that in a lot of spiritual spaces, there's one primary narrative, and that is like the cis white narrative, whether it be queer or straight, it doesn't matter. That's the primary voice. And I
Mhm.
think that it speaks to a larger systemic issue of us like not paying people of color appropriately and stuff like that. But like, I can only tackle one systemic issue at a time. So, but I figured what I could contribute to that and a way I could fix that was by giving people who are people of color voices and platforms and ways to speak and educate and be leaders in this community. So I was very conscious about selecting people who would create a diverse voice. And so that's where like Leo Rising and Dylan Diaz came in. And then we have a Shibari expert, Simon. He is like a Mexican immigrant. So like we have this like really, oh, and we have Donald, who's going to be uh, screening his like documentary on BDSM, and then he's going to be doing like a Q&A after that, and he'll be doing like an interactive portion after that involving like flogging and spanking, I think. So there's now a lot of really diverse voices with different approaches to it, like the whole like sexuality spectrum thing. And I think just it's going to be a really beautiful experience. And I'm facilitating um, a like cacao ceremony with plant medicine option and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a really magical experience. And even though originally it was conceived as like a bacchanalia, um, I work with a I work with all different deities from many different pantheons. And there was this Aztec deity that kind of came to me, and he's like literally a god of the gays. Like he's associated with queer men,
Mhm.
and his name is Xochipele. And so I decided that like energetically I was going to theme it around him. So there's going to be like lots of cacao and like marigolds and corn and stuff. And it's going to be, the menu is also, I think that when you, like I said, like sometimes when things are held by straight people, they don't think about the full picture of the like the queer container of it. So like for example, the food that's going to be at this event is going to be like a bottom friendly menu because there will be like activities happening, and I wanted to be aware and compassionate to that as somebody that does enjoy doing that. So not only for myself, but like I just think that sometimes those things aren't taken into account. And like I know other people that have worked on like erotically charged weekends where like the primary protein was like lentils, and like that doesn't digest super easy or super well. And I'm like maybe let's not do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I took a lot of care to look at this experience from all sides, not just um, a very typical like we're gonna plow straight through. I wanted to take a really artful approach to recrafting the way we experience sex and sexuality through a lens that can be seen as sacred, and like working with divine energies outside of ourselves and working with things that are like real, like because there's no real queer lens for spirituality. I was like, well, I should, part of like reclaiming something is like not necessarily tapping into something else, but like expanding your awareness, right? So like if our awareness of religion and spirituality is strictly through a heteronormative lens, like I knew there were like deities that like are queer in nature and stuff like that. So I was like, we should really be highlighting these deities so that people at least have a point of reference to ground into and say, like, hey, my sexuality is sacred. Hey, like, this doesn't need to be a completely, like, an experience that is devoid of spirituality because there was never a place for me before. Like, maybe even if you're not like working with this deity, at least you have like context for there is a bigger picture and there's a place for me in the bigger picture. And I think when you see things like deities or like things of that nature that are actively queer and like saying like, hey, it's okay to be gay, like all of a sudden it is part of like reclaiming your deity and unplugging from your religious trauma, saying like, oh, like maybe I can maybe because like in the Bible, some of the only figures that are like somewhat queer are like Saint Sebastian and Saint Andrews and or Saint Andrew. So the two of them are like kind of like queer figures, but there's nothing distinctly queer about them. Like so the fact that there's like an Aztec god that is gay, like and is celebrated as being gay, I was like, we need to explore this. We need to talk about this because I think like the one thing right can cause like a great ripple. So if like seeing a form of queer spirituality gives you permission to say like, oh, I can be spiritual and sovereign and not in a place of being judged for being who I am, like that has a ripple effect into how you show up in the rest of the world and show up in your daily life and how you treat other people. And so I think that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I lost my way with answering your question, but I
No.
sometimes just get to riffing.
No. That was so good. That was amazing. And like just as you were saying that, like we at least like I've we hear of that term of like queer spirituality, and like at least for me, like when I typically hear that, the way that I process that is like, what is my spirituality as a queer person? But here I think it's really cool to look at it as like, yes, but also like, what about spiritual beings, spirituality itself, like spiritual deities that are queer in their own right.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole different thing to look at, which is so cool because yeah, like it's permission granting and it's just world opening. It's expansive of like, oh shit, I might have been raised this way, but there's this being that's also a reflection of me out there in existence. Like
Yeah.
and like
And that thing predates the thing you were brought up believing usually.
right, yeah.
So I'm not saying, but I'm
Right.
just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just gonna leave that one out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And I think like that's what's so incredible with weekends like this is like it's simply an invitation to leave everything at the door and just to step in with an open mind, an open heart, an open soul, and simply to explore. Like that is a gift for so many people.
And I think like with a lot of the retreats that I created and I'm creating still because um, this is going to be one of four signature retreats that I do each year. Um, and then like throughout the year, there'll be like other ones plugged in along the way.
Mhm.
But this is going to be one of the like anchor retreats, let's say.
Mhm.
Um, so when I think about like that, it kind of also gives people like permission to explore in other ways, right? So like the October retreat is going to be very like witchy and stuff like that. So not to say that like physicality can't happen there or anything like that, but I think giving something its own designated space where you can say like this exists without abandon. It also like kind of de-highlights it or de-emphasizes it. That's what I'm looking for in other retreats. And like I think that at least in my experience with queer retreating, a lot of the spaces have this like sexual undercurrent always.
Mhm.
And I think that there's an aspect of that where, like, yeah, sure, that makes sense or whatever. But I think also it kind of de emphasizes some of the other work that happens there.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
think that even though I had planned this retreat in like after a few years of retreats, it kind of like put it there. So I was like, okay, we'll see where this goes.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you froze.
Oh, can you can you hear
You're back. You're back. Yeah.
me? Yeah.
Did I freeze? Did you get everything?
It froze a little bit. Do you remember like the last two sentences of what you said?
Oh, yeah. I was basically saying that like uh, because I want the May and the October retreats to both be anchors, it kind of designates a space to explore separate things like in totality. And I
Mm.
think a lot of queer retreat spaces in general have this like undercurrent of sexual charge happening. And I think that if we can give something its full space to explore, it kind of, you don't need to do it as much in other areas. And then you can give like other things their opportunity to fully flourish.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
100%. And it invites the people who need that thing to be safe to explore that thing,
yeah,
without that worry or that concern of, well, maybe I don't want to dive into this area quite yet, but I really want to go here. It kind of gives them that permission to do that in the safety of the container to make that happen.
yeah. Autonomy is everything.
100%. Oh my goodness. And so we'll have all of the retreat information in the notes of the show. It'll be all linked there where people can go check it out even more. Do you remember
Oh
the
yeah.
the one thing you were going to say earlier? If you want
No, it's gone. It's
to
gone forever.
totally okay.
Oh yeah, and in the show notes, actually, wherever I mean, this is one of the links I'm going to send you. Is that if you wanted to have a talk with me about coming on the retreat with us, there'll be like a little link that you can do that. It'll be called like a vibe check, and that it'll be so much fun. So yeah,
Oh, I love it. I love it. So that's the best next step for somebody who's interested is to set up a vibe check with you.
yeah, set up a vibe check with me. Super easy, and we'll go over kind of in more detail what the menus look like. You've already got a sense of what the whole retreat is about, but like I'll be able to answer any questions for you, take a deposit, and we actually are doing something where like the first five people get a surprise that I don't know if I should talk about, but it's
Ooh.
well, so like we're offering like little VIP options. So you're gonna get like a care package bag that's filled with all fun things and stuff. So
Oh, that's amazing. Ooh, a
yeah,
beautiful, beautiful gift of love there.
yeah, because I think like the whole thing is about like caring for these people and creating a safe container to for them to explore and stuff like that. So I'm going about it that way. That's one of the ways that I'm going to show that.
Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. Any last things you want to leave people with for today?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at a modern day mystic. If you want to tune into my podcast, or like, I guess it's like a vodcast because it's on YouTube. Um, that can be, I mean, there'll be a link to that down below, but we just talked about like the book The Alchemist, I believe, is what we talked about yesterday, which is like one of my all time favorite books. I read it once a year. Everyone should read it, just full stop. Everyone should read it. Um, but we do like a book club every week where we talk about a book. I tell you about it so you don't have to read it, although you should read it. And then I kind of explore spirituality through a bunch of different lenses, and it's a fun romp. So if you like my tangents that I've been on today, or like my social justice issues that I've talked about, you'll find more there. And that's the House of H. But House is spelled Haus because fashion and
Mhm.
gay.
I love it. I am so excited. I can't wait to dive into those. It's going to be so, so good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
I'm very excited. And
yeah.
thank you so much for having me on here to talk. I would love to have you on my podcast.
Yeah, I would love that too. This is like one of my favorite parts of the work that we get to do is just to connect with just incredible people who are like, we're just all on the same mission together. It's amazing. Like, so absolutely, I'd be honored. We'll do that. We'll do that for sure. Yeah, and thank you.
Yay.
Thank you for being here, for bringing all your light, your love, your goodness. This has been incredible.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I mean, It's really interesting because, like I said, this journey started 3 years ago as a joke, and now it's like very much alive and like taking on its own trajectory. And I think when you want to have a really big effect on the world, usually you sign up in a way that is like, yes, I'm willing to do this thing, and then you kind of nurture it, but then eventually the entity or the energy of the project that you picked up that's bigger than yourself kind of like starts to take on its own personality. So like the fact that I wanted to do the October retreat beforehand and then do this retreat, and it's almost like the organization itself went like, no, we're actually starting in May. That's like Beltane. That is when the birth of things happen. So we're starting then. And I was like, okay, okay, that sounds good. Um, so it's just really interesting. It's been a real joy doing this.
Yeah, yeah, it is so interesting where like yeah, once it starts to expand and the momentum is there, it's something that we had a hand in is now fully its own and it's cool. It's so cool to see. And yeah, like it becomes a spiritual thing of its own of like, okay, this is beyond me now. And what a gift that I still get to carry it. So cool.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Oh, so if we're gonna do closings now, can I say like a goodbye to them,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
everyone?
of course. Yeah.
Okay, because that's where we're going with this, right? We're
Mhm.
closing out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I always like to say like, stay kind to each other. The most rebellious thing we can do is be in community, and like remember that we're always only choosing between two things, which is love and fear, and fear is nothing more than love experiencing the boundaries of itself. So know that we're always living in love.
Oh, oh my gosh. That's so good.
Thanks.
Wow. I'm gonna have to journal on that. That's deep. Wow, yeah. It is all love at the end.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Juno, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Just thank you again for being you. You are an absolute light here on this planet.